In today's video, I would like to share with you why you shouldn't basically engage in high dopamine activities. Not so much smoking, but basically going beyond that to drinking, to anything that is instantly overwhelmingly pleasurable, because this information is not provided, because as a society we're failing. So I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I have, and I want to teach you exactly today why you shouldn't smoke, giving you the most concise and scientific breakdown, which I've spent 13 years to find myself so that I can provide this information to you today. I'm going to demonstrate it using an orange. This is a healthy brain. This is a brain that hasn't engaged in high dopamine activities. You could say this is a pure mind. For example, some of us used to love reading as a kid. Now we don't read. Why? Because it's boring. Why is it boring? It's actually very rewarding. It's actually very fulfilling. Why do we not do it? Because it's not pleasurable enough. This is a healthy mind. This is what happens when you read a book. You get just a little bit of squeeze, and it provides us juice, because this is a mind full of juice, providing dopamine. Meaning that we can do something that's not really that much fun, but it provides us a lot of pleasure to want to do it. And then, what happens over time? We start to engage in high dopamine activities. We start to drink, stay up late and smoke, and watch stuff online that we shouldn't watch. You know what I'm speaking of, certain adult materials. And we engage in these high dopamine activities, and that's this. That's what happens. When you engage in these activities, you don't get a tiny squeeze anymore, you get a pump. And look, that's you just smoked. Look, you just drank. Look, you just engaged in more activities that are so rewarding. And you continue to do this cycle. And over time, what happens? You just sit there constantly applying the pump. And then, this is what your mind looks like over years, over time. Start to look like this, kind of like a husk. And you don't have much juice in there. There's not much going on. That's why you hear people say, you know, the first smoke was the best. I never had a smoke like that again. I never could get to that point. Yeah, of course, because you literally made permanent changes because you were so pure of a mind before, and this is where you're at. And now when you go and read, that little bit of squeeze doesn't give you anything. Now when you want to go and sit there and have a conversation with your partner, doesn't give you anything. Now when you got to go and sit with your kid and play with them for an hour, doesn't give you anything, because you've depleted your mind so much of these high dopamine activities. And every single day when you wake up, your mind has just a little bit of the opportunity to recover itself, and it will grow back just a little bit of juice. So in the mornings, you don't engage anything that's highly dopamine engaging. You do not do that whatsoever, because if you're already trapped doing these actions, you have reinforced this actions. You haven't reinforced the little pump. You've reinforced that you need this, and that's what the brain will actively seek out, because the brain doesn't know the difference between good and bad. So you'll sit there and you'll start constantly looking for this, and then you're addicted. You're addicted because your brain is like this and everything else is insufferable. You just can't stand it, and you have to go and get this. So you wake up in the morning and you smoke. Boom, big squeeze. We felt good. Manage how we got some juice out. We couldn't get it while we were reading just a second ago, but we smoked in the morning. We got the little bit of juice that we recovered overnight back. This is how your brain works. This is why it takes literally 6 months, a year, so that you can get back to this point, not engaging in these high dopamine activities. But we have traps all around us. There is so many different ways that these companies are hiring by behavioral psychologists so that they can figure out what makes your brain tick and expel your dopamine on an activity, so you create an addictive nature, reinforcing the action, saying that's good for me, when really you should be focusing on your studies. And what happens is we get people that don't accomplish anything in life. They don't get anything done because they are complacent, doing exactly what it is that they've been doing. I just had a blackout in the neighborhood. That was very random. I've never had that happen. So my video cut out and I was getting a little bit emotional and worked up there. But my point is, and I want to share with you how you can put this into actionable steps. 3 groups. If you're somebody who's young or you have kids, don't let them engage in high dopamine activities. There's a composer who just won an award, and he says, "Thank you, Mom and Dad, for giving me drums and not giving me video games." And think of how much lost potential we have from these kids who start playing video games, and it's the highest rewarding dopamine activity that they have, and then suddenly everything else becomes trivial, like playing outside. So I always hear people say, wow, kids used to play outside back in the day. Well, guess what? Now they're always inside. They're on their phones. They're on technology, because it's just a so much higher dopamine activity. So try and help them to have a healthy environment. For the group that is already stuck and they are living this, I can tell you, wait until late in the evening to engage in high dopamine activities and do whatever you can to avoid in the morning, abstaining. And knowledge is power. Well, the more you know, the more you can put into action. So if this video has motivated you, the novelty of it, learning new information, that's how the brain works. It's brain's motivated by novelty. So the repetitive nature of something will then become boring. So if you tried and quit before, now you have a new angle, and that can be motivating and exciting to try and quit again. But not necessarily even quit, just try and change the structure of your day so that you understand you need to have a healthy brain at least for the first 8 hours of your day. And if you can manage to do that even the first 5 hours, you will start to get so much more done. You'll notice big habits changing, and you'll notice improvements in your life, because so many people, they will start to think, I have to smoke before I do this, I have to smoke before I do that, I have to smoke before I do that. And then it's like suddenly they do it, and what they're going to do next that follows isn't very fun or rewarding, and they don't really do it to the best of their ability because they're not truly engaged with it. It's not as pleasurable as it should be because you already derive so much more pleasure from something else that was so much more rewarding, instantly giving satisfaction, that the work at hand which you're about to undertake suddenly becomes trivial and meaningless. Don't do that. The third group, so we got the younger crowd who hasn't done it, try and save them, the people who are already hooked, and the people who are just starting to dabble and they're safe. Well, guess what? I can drink alcohol and I never have had urges to go, but then you'll find every person is built a little differently, and they'll have something that just clicks with them, and then they fall into that trap and they're stuck with that. For me, I was clean, sober, did absolutely nothing all the way until 20, and then I smoked, and it was like what clicked with my brain. And that wasn't healthy, but I had engaged in so many high dopamine activities beforehand. Video games. I remember having my Game Boy when I was like 8 years old, waking up in the middle of the night so I could play at 3, 4 a.m. and I didn't even set an alarm. My body would literally just wake up so I could go and engage in these high dopamine activities. It's like we're dopamine victims because nobody tells us like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. That's actually not really good for your brain whatsoever, and it's going to make everything else that you have to do in life that's actually important feel painful, and that's not good because then you're not going to want to do it, and then you become complacent in life and you get nothing done. So if this video helped you out, this video is sponsored by me. I know there's not a lot of people you can talk to about this. I've left my email, so if you'd like to contact me and have somebody to talk to, tell me about your life and what's going on and how you can better get more out of your life, in the sense that ask questions, because I've been through it and it took me a lot to get from where I'm at to where I'm at now. And literally I can tell you that knowledge is power, and the more that you can have somebody mentor you and teach you, the more that you can skip years, because I spend years trying to teach myself and learn and implement, and finally things clicked when I realized how the brain works and how it searches for dopamine and dopamine rewarding activities. And we really have to, in this modern day and age, do everything we can to protect our minds.